Welcome back. So today's topic is looking at scarcity and choice, which is the core economic problem. And we'll do it in a few steps. It'll take us a few segments. We'll start off by looking at the definition of economics. Then we'll go ahead and we'll talk about thinking about opportunity cost graphically. We'll talk about economic growth. And then eventually we'll get to talk about the concept of efficiency, about specialization, about absolute and comparative advantage. And we'll end with some discussion about trade. So this will take us a while. We'll do it step by step. But let me start with the definition of economics. I realized that last lecture we talked about opportunity cost, and you're probably wondering, well, what does that have to do with economics? So let's discuss that just for a couple of minutes. So many people define economics as the study of allocation of scarce resources to satisfy unlimited ones. And this definition is helpful, but it buries in it a few assumptions that I'd like us just to take a moment to discuss. So the first assumption here is that indeed we have scarce resources, and many of us do feel a constraint on one dimension in our life. Maybe we don't have enough money to buy our education. Maybe we don't have enough money to buy the car of our choice. But we can also probably think of someone, maybe not someone we know personally, but someone who has enough money to buy anything that he or she wants. So my favorite example is thinking about Bill Gates. So Bill Gates wants an island, he buys an island. Bill Gates wants 10 cars, he buys 10 cars. If Bill Gates wanted an Apple computer, which I'm sure he doesn't, but if he wanted an Apple computer, he could buy the most recent, most advanced Apple computer. So you might want to wonder, well, where does Bill Gates face this constraint of scarcity? But of course, Bill Gates, just like you, just like me, was born with only 24 hours a day. So Bill Gates, just like you and just like me, has at least one resource where he finds this binding constraint, where he cannot get more of that resource. And for him, that resource is time. For this definition to hold, it's sufficient that there is constraint on one of these resources. And it might be money, it might be time, it might be clothing, whatever it is, one resource where we have a constraint. The second assumption in this definition is that we have unlimited wants. And here again, we may be people who have many wants that are satisfied. I'm a very lucky person. I have enough food to eat. I have a very nice house to live in. I have enough money to pay for my children's education. I have a car to drive to work. So there are many things, many wants that I have that are satisfied. But it is enough for each of us to have one more thing that we want in order for this definition to be important. And so let's think again about Bill Gates. So presumably Bill Gates buys all the clothes that he wants, all the cars that he wants. It's no problem for him to pay for his daughter's education. But Bill Gates wants to alleviate world poverty. Okay, that is where he feels this constraint. That is where he feels, okay, I want more and I can't get more. That is where the constraint is binding. And for this definition to be interesting, it's sufficient that there is a constraint, a binding constraint, in at least one dimension. I have to tell you, a few years ago, I had a student who asked me, what happens if you reach a point of nirvana? And that's why I have this little picture of a Buddha down here, just to remind myself that some of us have reached the point of nirvana. And if we have, we don't have to study economics. But the rest of us, we haven't reached that point. There is still something that we want more of. There's at least one dimension in which we face the constraint of scarcity. And for us, this is an interesting issue to deal with. So how does economics satisfy these unlimited wants? One important development of humanity is developing markets. It's the need to satisfy these unlimited wants that has caused markets to develop. And the development of markets doesn't obviously alleviate all our needs, all our wants, but it gets us a little bit closer to that. So let me just stop a second and make something clear about this definition. I've used here the words needs and the words wants as synonyms. And if you've studied economics maybe in high school, or if you've had a discussion with your parents, you may have been told that there's a difference between needs and wants. Needs is something that we can't do without, and a want is something that we could do without, but we want it anyway. In economics, there is no difference. These are all wants. We might satisfy one of our wants before we satisfy the next wants, but they are all wants. In my classroom, I start each lecture with a song, and I will make a list of these songs available to you. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like I'll be able to play them together with you for copyright reasons, but I will make these songs available to you. And today's lecture, I always start with the Rolling Stones song, "You Can't Always Get What You Want." And I think this is just a lovely song for Mick Jagger to be singing. I don't know if you know, but Mick Jagger went to the London School of Economics, and he actually dropped out. I believe it's after the first year. Obviously, he realized the opportunity cost of time of going to school was too high. But he left school and he, founded the Rolling Stones, and 50 years later, they're still singing and going on a world tour. I just love starting with that song, partly because that song is actually wrong. That song says, you can't always get what you want, but if you try hard, you might get what you need. And this distinction between need and want, though it's a distinction that is popular out there, it's a distinction in other disciplines, a distinction that our parents talk to us about, it's a distinction that Mick Jagger talks about. It's not a distinction I will make in this course. So in this course, a want, a need, these are synonyms, and it's just our decision which of these wants we go ahead and we satisfy first.